Calling all educators, students, and space enthusiasts. The 2025 Small Sat Education Conference is where the future of space begins. Join us at the Kennedy Space Center for hands-on workshops, expert speakers, and industry networking, all focused on bringing small sat innovation into the classroom. Explore CubeSats, high-altitude balloon missions, and hands-on STEM workshops designed to launch the next generation of space explorers. Don't miss this chance to connect, learn, and innovate. Visit smallsateducation.org to register today. Let's go to space. Blue Sky Learning, episode 155. Representing the underrepresented. Today, Kevin and I meet with Lalitha Murali. She's a gifted and talented teacher for the Glendale River-Hills School District. 16 years ago, when she started teaching, she noticed that there were only a handful of immigrant and minority children in gifted programs. By starting educational outreach and organizing workshops, Lalitha targeted the underrepresented groups in her school and community. And today, she offers advanced learning opportunities for immigrant and minority families. Lalitha has been recognized several times for her dedication and passion in the field, and most recently, her commitment to advancing STEM education has earned her recognition as a Globant STEM Award Winner for the Inspiring Leader category for the USA and Canada regions. We're inspired by her work, and we know you will be as well. Welcome, Lalitha Murali. We are so looking forward to having this conversation today. For our listeners who haven't met you, tell them a little bit about yourself and how you came to be involved in this particular focus of education that's now your passion.
Hi, my name is Lalitha Murali. I am a public school educator in Milwaukee, Wisconsin now. You know, there's an interesting story how I became an educator. Our family, my husband, we are from India. My husband company sent him to Helena, Montana in 2000 to work with the fish, wildlife, and parks. First he came, and then the company said, okay, it's a long-term project. You are allowed to bring your wife and children. So 2001 January, myself and both my daughters, who were just 2 and 4 at the time, came to Montana. That September, my older daughter started kindergarten. You know, that's when we had 9/11 happen. In Montana, where it is 100% white, my daughter was the only brown-skinned child in the entire school district in Montana. And she did face some discrimination. And, so I got a call from the kindergarten teacher that, Miss Murali, your daughter is perfectly fine inside the classroom, but outside she is not playing with other kids. She's just sitting all alone during recess. I just asked her at the time that, why are you not playing with your friends? And she said, Mommy, everybody is asking why my skin is brown, my gums are brown. Can you take me to Walmart to get a cream so that I will also become white like my friends?
Ugh.
Then I thought I have to do something. I went to the principal and I said, I have my bachelor's and master's degree from India, but I'm not eligible to work in this country. Do you think it's okay for me to come to my daughter's classroom to work with children as a parent volunteer? Because I feel that it's important for children to know that people like me, people with different skin color, exist in this world. She said, absolutely. So that is how I started my life as a parent volunteer in my daughter's kindergarten classroom. I took a globe and then I showed all the 5-year-olds that, look at this, the globe. One side is India, exactly on the other side is North America. My daughter looks different because she is from the other side of the world. Not only that, India has 28 states. Each state has its own music, language, dance, food, everything, culture, everything is different. In America, you have 50 states. You all speak one language, English. So kids were fascinated. Overnight, my daughter became the celebrity. Every child wanted to be friends with the special girl who came from other part of the world. This episode taught me that, we need to educate. Education is the key to solve all the problems. The principal said, we want to hire you as an educator. We will sponsor for your visa. I transferred my credits from India. I had to go to school for 2 semesters in Carroll College in Helena, Montana. I got my education degree. Then my husband lost his job. He applied, he got a job in Milwaukee. I came here and then I did my student teaching. Rest is history. I was hired as an educator in 2006. So that is how I became an educator.
That's
So
an incredible story. I mean, it reminds me in sixth grade, I, same thing, grew up in a very white bread community in parts of Florida. Of course, this is the 80s. And we had a boy join our class, and he was from Calcutta. And my teacher, I remember, I thought, and in retrospect, after hearing your story, did such a good job of making an entire unit about let's learn about India that we immediately felt like how cool, how lucky we are to have somebody like this in our classroom. And I think it really is all about how that's presented. So kudos to you for bringing that up at a time when not everybody is willing to acknowledge that differences are actually
Right.
quite important.
Well, you gave us a brief glimpse into half of the story, but now what's the half of the story about how you got involved with aerospace?
correct. So that's the daughter who's an MD now. So she's at UPenn. She's an internal medicine doctor. She's going to be a specialist in kidney transplant. So when I realized as an educator and a mother that if my daughters, both my daughters, became valedictorians, they got into med school, then I thought this opportunity should be available to every child. Because if my daughters can get in, anybody can get in. So that is why that became the motto of me. Then I was hired as English as a second language teacher first, and then a gifted and talented teacher. So my philosophy is every child is gifted if they are given the right opportunities. So I started looking into various STEM programs. And then during the summer, I will be busy attending various PDs that are provided to educators for free. And then I will attend those PDs and I will bring in those programs to my school. I work for a school district where almost 60% of the students are from minority culture. And then so we are a Title I school district. What I have done, so when I first started as an educator in my school district, I saw only 2 or 3 kids sitting in the library just doing some online program. Then I asked them, what are you guys doing? And they said, oh, we are identified as gifted, so we are taking an online class from Northwestern University. I went to my superintendent. I said, we have 1,000 students in our school, and you are telling me that only 3 or 4 kids are gifted out of 1,000 kids. So there is something wrong. So can we have some type of a resource class where I want to work with the kids, all the kids who are proficient in both reading and math, so that we can expose them to various STEM programs. And my superintendent immediately agreed. So we created a resource program. So my middle school has 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So every grade level, we would have around 100 students. 25 to 30 students would be proficient in both reading and math. So every period for 30 to 40 minutes, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, I will have all 5 classes. Those students will come. Then I will work with them on various STEM programs. For example, I will teach them the basic scientific process, our engineering design process. So these students will learn about science fair, and then they will create their small experiment, and then I will take them to a local showcase, so we will have a school showcase, a science fair. And then when they are in middle school, 6, 7, and 8, I'll take them to the district science fair and regional. And then some of them might qualify to go to state, simple things like that. Really showed data that anybody can succeed if they are given the right opportunities. um, 2 3 years ago, I found out that there is a program offered at UW, University of Wisconsin Madison. It is called a Teachers in Research program. So 7 weeks, teachers will be able to work with the professors from the university on their field, learn about their research, and then modify that research to suit their students, either middle or high school students. I applied for that program. I was one of the 6 educators chosen that year. And then I was put in with the physics department. I was initially a little bit disappointed, even though I had a degree, basic bachelor's degree in physics long time ago. In general, people have the mentality that, oh, physics is not as cool as biology and chemistry, because biology you can work with plants, and chemistry you can mix different, liquids and chemicals, and you can do cool things. So I was also ignorant, and I thought that physics is not as cool as chemistry and biology. I was initially disappointed that I was put in with a physics professor, but I didn't realize that mine was the coolest experiment of all the teachers. So my professor was doing epitaxy and doing very atomic level crystal formation. And then it was so fascinating. Whatever I have read in the books like Raman spectrometer and those things, billion, trillion dollar equipments, I was able to go see and operate with the PhD students. My project came out so beautifully, so I modified that. And then it's called the piezoelectric capacity, and then using Rochelle salt, I created crystals that has the same effect as creating small electricity. So my professor was very pleased, and he said, Ms. Murali, do you know about the Wisconsin Space Grant Consortium? And they have a cool workshop PD for teachers about space and microgravity. I think you will be a good fit for that. I said, oh, really? I never knew that Wisconsin has a space grant consortium. And then I applied. I got into that program. It's called Embedded Teacher Program. So I went there. It's a 3-day program, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we learned about microgravity. And I met so many cool educators from all over the world. And then we learned about that. And then at the end of the session, Dr. Kevin Crosby announced that if you are doing something related to space in your classroom, and if it aligns with NASA mission, you can submit your proposal. And if your proposal get accepted, you get to go to space. I thought, wow, I really want to go to space. Who wouldn't want to do that? I came back and I brainstormed with my students, and my students at that time, I got them small Arduino microcontrollers. So that year, my 6th, 7th, and 8th graders created hydrogen, oxygen, and CO2 sensors using Tinkercad and Arduino controllers. And they were testing every classroom how much oxygen, hydrogen, CO2 is there. And then one of the students said, how about we test CO2 redistribution in space? Because in ISS, it is like a small classroom, because when we tested the CO2 in our classroom, 30 students in a small classroom, the CO2 level was high. So they said, it will be very useful for NASA, because if there is a CO2 leakage or excess CO2, if we could, figure out a way to see whether the CO2 redistribution, it will be helpful for NASA. So I submitted, of course, our proposal got accepted. And then NASA sponsored all the materials for our experiment. And then we had some idea, but we did not know how to measure that. And then I reached out to various universities around our school. And then I had so many mentors who came into my classroom to work with my students. And then we created a successful experiment. So So then I was one of the 4 educators chosen to fly in zero gravity flight. I was so fascinated. And then during our monthly, we had our weekly meetings, and then I saw other teachers using colorful liquids and stuff like that, because even when they are showing the video, others were able to see that. Unfortunately, my experiment involves CO2 gas. Nobody can see, so it is only a box, transparent plastic box inside. Even though I would release CO2, all the data will be recorded only in the SD card. And I have to come back to the earth and then put it in the computer. I can only see the data. Nobody will be able to see anything, what is happening inside the box. So I had a call with the professor I worked with at the UW-Madison, Dr. Jason, and he said, "Oh, Lalitha, how is it going?" And I said, "I'm so happy that my proposal got accepted. I'm doing one of the coolest experiment. Unfortunately, it is not as exciting as other teachers, because other teachers are showing colorful liquids and stuff like that. Mine is only gas. Nobody will be able to see." He said, "You are wrong. There is an organization called Teledyne. They work for the space industry. They have the coolest camera. That camera will identify only CO2, no other gas. So maybe you should contact them, and your experiment will be as cool as the other teachers." As soon as I disconnected his call, I went online. I looked at the 1-800 number, I called, and it's Karma, I think, because the exact person who is in charge who picked up the call.
Wow.
And
Right.
he said, I immediately said, "Oh, my name is Lalitha Murali. I'm an educator. I did this, blah, 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 blah." I shared all the stories. And I said, "Is that really true that you have the coolest camera that can visualize only CO2? You know what he said? "Do you want me to come to your classroom?"
Yeah.
Wow. So
Now, this
lucky.
this was Teledyne, right? Teledyne. Were they
Teledyne.
local to you, or were they? I know they're in like Alabama.
They came from Alabama.
Wow. Yeah, that's
So
good.
I said, "Is it? Can you really?" He said, "Absolutely. When do you want me to come?" I said, "You can come tomorrow."
Yeah,
He said, "Okay,
whenever.
I'll come next week." So next week he came with one other person, not with one camera, multiple cameras. And my kids were so fascinated. There were 24 students from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade who were involved in this program, because they would come to my classroom twice a week for 1 hour each to work on this project. And they immediately tested their experiment. We could see CO2 redistribution. CO2 will be visually, we could see from the box like a blue smoke, only blue smoke. We can see when I release CO2 like a blue smoke. And immediately the kids went down to bring their instruments. They started playing flute and saxophone. We could see CO2 come out, and then we were able to see through the camera the CO2. Our hypothesis was that since there is gravity, when we release CO2, the CO2 will first try to go down and then it will disperse everywhere. Our hypothesis is if we do that in the space, because there is no gravity, it will just go up first and then it will redistribute. So everything was done. They spent 3 hours in my classroom, and then they were about to leave. One of the students asked that, "Thank you so much for bringing the camera for us to use in the classroom, but the very purpose is for us to see our teacher doing the experiment in space. Would you be able to give your camera to my teacher when she goes to space?" And that person said, "Yes, absolutely."
Wow. It's
I
incredible.
said, "Just to let you know, I'm a poor public school teacher. If I drop the, how
Yeah.
much it cost? It cost $100,000. I said, "I don't want to drop the camera and you cannot charge me. I don't have that kind of money."
Mm,
"Don't worry, we will work with NASA and then we will have an insurance plan for you."
right.
And they shipped my camera a week before my flight. And I
Wow.
took that coolest camera and then I did my experiment. So they did ask him that, "How did you decide to come to Milwaukee to this random school district to share
Right.
your Teledyne camera. You know what he said? We always get calls from top CEOs and different company, and then just all company talk. First time we got a call from a passionate public school educator.
Well, let me take this opportunity just for the sake of time to bring it back to some of these challenges, because I'm not sure that people might even be appreciating how much passion you had to have and grit to go from being told you can't work here to now all of a sudden you are provided, someone who's like, no, we're going to give you a job, and then you go to the superintendent and they're like, yes, we want that. So it seems interesting to me, because I know, we've had other, parents we talk to that want to do well by their kids, but they're often met with no. And somehow in your situation, it seemed to be like a path unfolding. So I know you referenced karma. It's like, what do you attribute it to? Just the fact that you were tenacious and had the ability to ask? Or how did this, you know what I mean? Like, what are your thoughts on how you didn't get these
Yeah. Is it
obstacles?
more than just your persistence? Is it beyond that?
Yeah, so this is my 18th year working in the district. So the first 5 years, I was just working as, I was just asked to do whatever I was asked to do, and I did work with only handful of kids, and then they saw my work ethic, so then they realized that yes, if she is saying that she wants to work with all types of students and she can make a difference, I think it is the trust my superintendent had in me.
Well, it's
So
amazing that you were able to get to the superintendent, because I mean, it's one thing to get to a principal at a school, but to be able to get to the superintendent is pretty unheard of. I'm curious as to what Wisconsin's laws are for gifted students there. I mean, we have, each state has their own kind of qualifications, and usually it's like an IQ test or so forth. And we do know that there's a disparity. People of color, students who are from poorer backgrounds generally are not as equally represented, and some argue that that's purposefully done. But I'm curious as to what the qualifications are. You noticed that there was a missing populations, and yet what was it that was holding them back? Is it that there were just so few students? Sounds like not, because they were there.
I think it's because they didn't have an advocate, right? You're their advocate.
Well, even with an advocate, though, the laws are set up the way they are. So
Right.
I'm curious to hear about the laws.
there's a Wisconsin law that students should be tested, various tests. We give them IQ and math and other tests. And then if they qualify, they get the services. So we have that in every school district in Wisconsin. Apart from that, we did have a resource room. So that is not considered as a gifted and talented classroom. It is a resource room. So the students with the special needs, they will be working during that time with the special education teachers. Students with EL, English as a second language, they will be working with their EL teacher. And the normal population will be working with the regular classroom teacher. And then the students who were proficient in math, so they don't need any help with their regular classwork, they will come to me.
Okay. So they were able to, in that school, you were able to see where the need was. You said, hey, there's this space available. Let me utilize this space. So it sounds like you didn't just say, hey, here's a problem. You came to them with a solution as well. And people probably like that. So did you have to, I know that you got the support of the superintendent, but you had to have had the support of the local principal and the teachers as well first.
Absolutely, because it's good for teachers too. So instead of working with 15, 20 students in the classroom, so they have to focus only with the 5 or 6 students during that time who were not up to the grade level,
Right.
because special education teachers went with special education teachers, EL students went with EL teachers, and then the classroom teacher had only 5 to 10 students. And then from every classroom, 5 or 6 students who were proficient in reading and math, they came to me.
Yeah, so you enabled the school to better differentiate for the needs of the students.
Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, I think that's like
Yeah.
probably the bigger issue. You don't have enough people
Right.
like you who can fill that role.
So we may have to circle back for a future episode, but there is an area that I need to pivot in because I don't want to run out of time. Tell us how you got involved with the National Space Society.
So one of the Lynn, who's the vice president of the NSS, she was the one who conducted the embedded teacher program
Uh,
the first
for
time when
our
I
audience, Lalitha is referring to Lynn Zelensky, who
correct.
is frankly a real pioneer in
Absolutely.
aerospace education for decades, right? She's been retired for some time, but the woman did incredible work as a teacher. She flew experiments on the shuttle in something called the gas can or the getaway special.
She was a role model. She even came to my classroom and she worked with my students for 2 3 hours. She and her another person, two of them came from NSS um, to work with my students on when even at the initial stage of the experiments. She was very fascinated. The kids were fascinated to hear her story, how she was involved in NSS and how she wanted to be a NASA astronaut. Her story is incredible. So then she invited me and my students to present at the first NSS conference. And we presented. And then, because there is also a local documentary that came from the beginning, from the brainstorming session of my students until I flew in 0G, so they are coming up with a documentary. It's been a big process for the last 3 years. So we talked about the documentary, and from that day onwards, I was interested in NSS. I became the NSS, and
Right.
this is the fourth year I students to present at the NSS conference. So
Yeah.
opportunities like these
Yeah.
So
matter. The kids who are part of this, they want to be the astronauts, and they want to work for NASA.
right. So, for our audience, I met Lalitha because we are space ambassadors with the National Space Society. And for at least a couple of years, my students have met with her students at the International Space Development Conference. Your kids do, a really good job presenting as well. And in fact, it's always great to see you when we run into each other at the conference.
Well, we are to the point in the podcast where we are going to give you our last question, but I have to say that I'm so impressed to have seen somebody who just really personifies how you don't give up, but you've also brought in people from outside the actual industry into your classroom. And that's something that, I know that Kevin and I also see as an important kind of shift in how we approach STEM education. So it's very, very impressive. But for our listeners out there, I'm sure we have some, parents who may be thinking, my child has not been identified as gifted. There, maybe there are some challenges there, or just in general, some advice you might have for parents, teachers, educators, superintendents about what we need to do to make sure that there are more minority populations that are represented in gifted ed or aerospace for that matter.
As Kevin said, advocacy matters. If you think your child needs challenges, or as a teacher, if you feel like one of the students need to be challenged, you have to advocate for them. Because sometimes, especially minority kids, they fall through the crack because you cannot judge a kid's IQ level or the potential based on just one test. How they perform when you are teaching. Are the kids able to absorb and grasp the information right away? That means the kid has the potential to succeed. And when you notice all these things, please advocate for your students, advocate for your children, because definitely it is just, it's not that no school district is purposefully not identifying, because they don't know that, so you need to advocate for them. And once you advocate and once you provide the opportunities, I strongly believe that opportunities matter, and every kid can be successful if he or she are given the right opportunities.
That's great. I have an idea, Lalitha. Let's next spring, let's bring some of your students onto an episode and let them discuss the research and the work that they've done over this past school year. How about that?
Absolutely.
And that way we'll give your students a bully pulpit and let them share out, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Well, it has truly been a pleasure meeting you today. I know our listeners feel the same, and we look forward to talking with you again. Thanks so much.